Hello, my gorgeous friend in the internet. Welcome to another series. Today we'll be looking at variables in JavaScript, the var, the let, and the const. So when we are looking at variables, there are things I would like to point out. Some of them, the merits and dismerits they have. So the var keyword have been existing from the beginning of JavaScript. So over the years, as it goes on, there are some things that other languages are enjoying, which we are not enjoying in JavaScript. So because of that, the const and the let keyword was introduced. So whenever we're looking at the global scoping, which we'll say practicalize, you'll find that it's not available whenever we're using the const and the let, but the global scoping is available in the var keyword. When we are looking at the function scope, it's available in all of them. Then the block scoping, which is very important, and it was not available in the var keyword, and is one of the reasons for the introduction of the let. We find that we now have it in the modern variables. We can now do the block scoping, which we will also look at as we proceed. So another thing is when we come to reassigning a variable, we can achieve it in the previous version, which is also available in let, but in constant, just like the name implies, you cannot reassign any variable when you have been declared or you have been assigned already. So please kindly open your VS Code because we would like to create an environment where we can be testing our JavaScript. So in order to achieve this, I've created a folder. All we need to do is you can click on open folder because I want to be writing my code in a folder. In my desktop, I have a folder called variable. Just click on it once, select folder, and it will open. You will see the variable which is available. You can now click on new file because we should create a new HTML document. We can now link our JavaScript to test it. So in order to achieve that, I can simply save my first page. And whenever you are saving a first page for me, index.html. So that's what I want to create, our first HTML file. I can now save. The essence of me saving it first is that it will help me to use the shortcut provided by VS Code, which is very good. So I can now type this exclamation mark, hit my enter. So you find that you have created a basic structure out of the box. Next thing to do is to create another file, which will be a JS file, a JavaScript file, where we'll be writing our JS. So the simple way of achieving this, you can right click here to create a new file. You can double click here to achieve a new file, or you can as well click on file, select a new file. So any of this method is still okay with me. Now I would like to save it. Whenever I create, I will call it main.js. So make sure you save it with .js file. It's still in that variable folder I created. I can now save. So I'm having index.html, main.js. So these are two files we are having for now. Without waste of time, if we don't need all these things, because I would like to simplify it very well. We don't think we need all these things. So I'll do some basic cleanup to make it very simple. You can take off this doc type. This is not HTML class. So if you are still confused with HTML, kindly check out my video in the link above. We can clean up more by removing the language. So we're having a very simple structure, which is the HTML we're using to wrap up everything we have. We have the head section, and in the head section, one of the things we find there is the title. So we can change this to any title of our choice. I can call it variables, depending on what I want. So in this section now, we can include our JavaScript so that our HTML can see our JavaScript. So we can as well create a simple div, which is simple, and I know that you know how to do that. So I can say something like hello world, depending on what you want to write. So when we have a simple hello world, below it, I can as well give an ID. These are things that you'll be familiar with. I can call it print. So when I save, if I want to view what is happening so far before we include our JavaScript, I can right click and go to open with live server. So live server can process this code for me without waste of time. You find that I'm getting this hello world. So assuming you're having issue, if you want to install to set up a live server, all you need to do is simply click on extension, this extension icon. If you click on this extension icon, go to the search bar, you can easily type live server, and you find that it will pop up without any waste of time. So once it pops up, all you need to do, click on this first one, written live server. The icon will appear. Make sure that it's this icon. For me, I've installed it. That's why they're asking me to uninstall. So kindly click on install and it will have it set up for you fully. So once you have done that, you can simply do what? Go back to our work, what we are doing. You can see it's everything running very well. So to link our JavaScript, to make sure that this JavaScript is working, all we need to do is to bring in a script tag. So once we have this script tag, we should have a source. We can now link in our main.js. Why is picking the main.js from me? If you can see, the selection is because of they are in the same page. They are in the same folder, depending on the one you have. So it's your choice. If you want to, you can put this in front of it. Whether you have this full stop with / or you don't have it, it's still okay. So far, so good. Next thing we do is we need to test it out. Make sure that it's working. So one of the easiest way to test it out, you can have one of the function that comes with JavaScript where I can say alert my name, which is val. I can now save, and if we go back to the live server, you find that something is alerting the screen. So live server will always run it automatically for me. So if you look here, you can see the title we set up, variable, which is also available in our screen. We have in the HTML the title of variable. So this one is being printed, which is the hello world. So I would like to make it bold by converting this div to H1. So I can simply change it to H1. If we save and go back, you notice that it will be bolder, which is what I want. So to check out this variable we have been discussing all this while, all we need to do is to clean it up. So we can try out using a var keyword where I can say something like my name, and I will say my name is what? Affirms val. So I have affirms val. So with this name now, if I want to print it out, I can still use this alert, which I can pass my name to it. So alert will always show off whatever you have in it. If it's a variable, you don't need to add it in a string. Like you see that I just created a variable called name. So I have to do what? Pass it like this. But if I'm looking at a string, I can as well take off this variable. If you are writing anything other than a variable, you need to put it in a string like this, which is what I did previously. But for the fact I'm working with a variable, I don't need to add a string to it. So if we should save now and check what is happening, you find that I'm having what? Affirms val. So if I wish now, I can as well reassign whatever I have here, which you can do with the const keyword. I can still have a name. And I can say now that I'm changing my name to Ben. And if I should save now, you find that what I will be getting is another alternative to val. So we can as well split our screen to get a better result. Because we are using var keyword, we can override whatever we have, any segment we have here, which is allowed. So whenever we are using something like let keyword, you cannot do the same thing. So if I declare the let now, I cannot have anything like let keyword again to show me an error that this is not achievable. If I should save this now, you find that the alert is not showing because there is an error here. So whenever we are using let keyword, you make sure that whenever you declare the let first time, you can now clean it. You can now clean up the let word if you want to reassign a value to it again. So you just mention the name like this and you give it any value you want. So if I should save this, you find that I'm still getting Ben. So another thing we'll be looking at now is const. So once we have const, which is a constant like the name implies, we don't need to redeclare it again. That's why we are seeing an error here. And if we look at the pop-up, it's telling us that that the name has already been declared. So please, const keyword can only be declared once. You don't need to reassign it. So like this, if I click, if I should save, you find that it's popping up my name, affirms val. You cannot reassign const keyword. It helps us a lot whenever we are writing a large number of code to avoid errors where we can override any variable which we don't plan to do mistakenly. So you can use const keyword to avoid that. So far, I have explained this reassigning, which you find that you cannot reassign costs, but you can reassign this. But whenever we are reassigning let, you make sure that you don't use the let keyword again, unlike the var keyword. So looking at these scopes, this is what we are going to treat later when we must have done things like function, if and else statements. Thank you and see you in the next series.